Welcome to this special edition of LUTV News. I'm Cassie Hall. Today we are talking about an epidemic that is invading our community, heroin. Until recently, heroin use is something that was considered taboo and hardly ever talked about. People used words like junkie to describe people who suffered from a heroin addiction. Now it seems as if the drug is everywhere. It's becoming more common that people are seeing their neighbors, their friends, and even their family be touched by the drug. And because of this, the conversation is taking a different turn. In today's show, we will look at two families who have suffered from the effects of heroin. We will see the journey they went through and how they turned their tragic experience into good. Givina and her family live in O'Fallon, an upper middle class town with a low crime rate. When she started having problems with her 17-year-old daughter, Nikki, she assumed she was dealing with typical teenage hormones. It had never crossed her mind that her daughter could be a heroin addict. One morning, Guy walked into Nikki's room prepared to argue with her about going to school, but instead, she found her unconscious.
She was on her side and she was frothing at the mouth. She was totally gray. Eyes were rolled back in the back of her head. She was ice cold. And it was just, you're looking like, what in God's name is going on here? And you're screaming because you don't even know what you're looking at. How can I be talking to a kid one day and the next day I come into her room and she looks like this?
Guy didn't understand what was wrong with Nikki. That was until the EMT broke the news.
You're in the back of the room just horrified because you don't even know what's happening. And you're sitting there and he's like, what kind of drugs does your daughter do? And I'm like, I say none because I don't know. I mean, you know, smoking marijuana isn't going to cost. I don't know what this is. I don't even know if she really wasn't even one that would talk about smoking weed a lot, you know, or really was kind of more vehemently opposed to that. So, and I'm like, she doesn't do any drugs. And he's like, your daughter's a heroin addict.
Nikki's life was saved that day, but her battle with heroin was just beginning.
You know something is different. Something is going on and something is different, but you don't know what it is.
Guy said from that point on, her family was on the roller coaster from hell, and all she wanted to do was get the hell off.
The destruction of watching your child absolutely self-destruct in front of you, and you cannot fix it. And not only is the self-destruction on her, it's your whole family.
Guy finally realized that her daughter's addiction was a disease that Nikki would have to fight for the rest of her life.
It was never going to let her go. It never was going to. It was going to be forever. It was going to forever, forever, forever.
Nikki finally lost the battle and her forever ended. She overdosed on January 13th, 2013 at the age of 20 years old. Kelly Clodfelter lost her 17-year-old son Jordan to heroin almost 2 years after Guy lost Nikki. The two families suffered the same outcome, but their experiences were very different. Jordan tried heroin only one time, but one time was enough to cost him his life.
Jordan was 17 years old, and his actual first time to pick up was his last. Jordan made a bad decision. He was hanging out with some people. He was in a pretty dark place. We had just lost his baby sister, my daughter, to SIDS 5 weeks prior. And so I think that kind of incorporated what happened that night. I think he was just in a bad place and had been drinking. We know he was taking Xanax, and he was offered heroin. And he did a line of heroin, and he became unresponsive. And instead of them calling for help, he was in a house that was well known for selling heroin. They actually loaded him up and drove him 20 some odd miles to the hospital and dropped him off.
Jordan lived in Warrenton. Kelly, being a recovering addict herself, enforced a very strict no drug policy in their house. Jordan was smoking weed and taking Xanax, and because of his mom's rules, he decided to move out. The death of his sister brought him back home, and Kelly was happy to have her son back. That was until she got the call saying her son was in the hospital and she needed to get there fast.
Jordan was still alive when we got there. Later, I found out it took him 40 minutes to get him to breathe again. And of course, they fought that hard, of course, because he was 17 years old and he had vital organs. And that's the reason they knew that Jordan was going to be brain dead.
Kelly refused to believe that her son was gone until 3 o'clock the next afternoon when the doctors pronounced him clinically brain dead.
I remember that when my dad died, I was with him, and there was a smell that came from my dad's mouth. And I remember when I bent down to kiss Jordan, I smelled it. And I remember I just decided I wasn't going to tell anybody, because as long as nobody knew, maybe it wouldn't be so, you know. My son was dead.
People who lost a long battle with heroin have told Kelly that she's lucky she didn't have to go through the fight just to see the same ending. But Kelly said she would have rather had the opportunity to try and save her son's life, and Jordan would have wanted a second chance at saying no to heroin. 3 years after Guy lost her daughter and 2 years after Kelly lost her son, the two mothers talked about how their families coped with the death of their children. Guy said she's constantly conflicted between two feelings, guilt and peace.
This is a different level of pain. It's like she said, it's something that there's no words in the dictionary to make you understand what this pain is until you get those shoes and you have to wear them.
After losing their children, Guy and Kelly could agree on one thing: they wouldn't ever recover.
Because every day I wake up, the reality is the same. Every time I speak, the reality at the end of my day is the same. I can fight and fight and fight, but nothing is going to bring back my children. They're gone.
Guy said Nikki's battle with heroin was so physically, financially, and emotionally draining that she didn't know if she would be able to fight much longer.
And you as a family, you are a victim of your own child. You are a victim of them, stealing and lying to you and manipulating you and all the things that they have to do in order to not experience the withdrawal syndromes of opiate abuse. You become a caged animal in your own home. You didn't want to have to make this ultimate sacrifice to have peace. And that's really, regretfully, that's what comes of this, is that the addiction is over, the chaos is over, their struggle is over.
It's very sad that Jordan died. He was 17 years old and he had a whole life ahead of him. But I'll tell you, the sadder part of it is that I live. And I don't have a choice, and I didn't have a choice. And that's the reality.
Coming up, I'll tell you how these two mothers went through such devastation, turned their pain into motivation to tell their story and help other people.